Computer.
All right.
All right. Well, welcome everyone. You found yourself at the Creative Nectar podcast once again, or maybe for the first time. I am your co-host, Stephanie Gray.
And I am Jenny Hahn. Hello, everyone.
Hey.
Welcome.
Hey,
Hey.
Jenny.
Hey, Steph. How's
I
it
find myself
going?
in an alternate reality all of a sudden. Things are going good. We were just
Yeah.
we were just talking off air about flow and how when we're engaged in it, it can change everything. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about creative flow. And that can also be considered flow state. So it kind of goes hand in hand. But for us, because we talk about creativity here, we'll be talking about creative flow. And luckily for us, we have Jenny Hahn here, part of Creative Nectar, who has literally written the book on creative flow. So we're going to talk about a little about that. Like what is creative flow? I know a few years ago, well, a couple 10, 20 years ago, I didn't know what that was. What is creative flow? And what does it feel like to be in creative flow and all the stuff? So that is what we're going to be talking about today. And I'm excited to dive in.
Yay. So am I. This is
Yeah.
obviously one of my favorite topics ever. So, um, yeah, let's just jump in and explore this theme a bit. And you mentioned the flow state that, as coined by, hang on, Steph, I'm going to pause. Jerry just started the car. For those of you in Soul Nectar community who are watching us live, hey, or not live, but the unedited. Okay, there we go. So you mentioned flow state, and that term is coined by Hungarian psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi. I hope I pronounced his name correctly, but he referred to it as the flow state, as being the mental state of being completely present and fully immersed in a task.
Mm,
And there's a lot of research around this, that people are happiest when they're in such a state. But it refers to more of the mental and even brain chemicals and hormones and things like that that are released in this state. And a lot of people think of it as an optimal state and, great for productivity. Of course, in our culture, it's like utilized for being more productive, blah, blah, blah. But what we're all about here at Creative Nectar Studio is about creative flow
mm.
and so I want to just share my own definition. This is in the book, my book, Creative Flow. But I define it as the alchemical state of engaged curiosity, grounded presence, and liberated expression through which any sense of separation disappears.
Mm.
So let me break that down a bit because that's a mouthful. The alchemical state, what does that mean? Alchemy is transformation, right? It's transforming something into something else. And that is what happens when we're in that creative flow state, right? Engaged curiosity. We are present. We are with whatever it is we're doing. Grounded presence. We are connected. We're in our bodies. We are in the present moment. And liberated expression. I mean, that is cosmic play. That is
Mm.
allowing the moment to flow through us in whatever form of expression we are most desiring in that moment. So, not the head, the mind, planning and controlling things, but allowing that free form expression, which is our vitality, our life force energy in this engaged state of play and exploration. And when we are in that, then yes, we can lose sense of time, and also, you know, any sense of separation disappearing. That it is like a form of union. It's a union with ourself, with our creativity, union with, I mean, with everything, right? You can say a union with your higher power if you believe in such ways, but it's this union state is how I perceive it. And you don't have to have artistic talent or skills to do this, right?
Yeah.
So that is the real gift of it, because oftentimes flow is described as when you are in that perfect balance of, um, you feel comfortable enough with something that you can lose yourself in it. And part of what we always talk about here is you don't have to be good at it.
Mm.
You just have to engage it.
Absolutely. And first of all, I have to go back and say I love that cosmic play. I just love what that conjures up in my heart, honestly. And I believe that full-heartedly. That is it. It is that space where you become so connected with that. I will use the word divinity, but also, higher self or whatever, curiosity, when you're connected
Yeah.
to your curiosity to the point where you lose all track of time. And and I you don't have to be an artist to have that. One of my questions for you was, do you have to be an artist? And absolutely. I mean, I don't believe that you do. It can be, because when we are talking about creative flow, we are talking about creative flow, but that can happen when you're rearranging furniture and you're having such a good time and you're so curious about how maybe an armchair will look over there as opposed to where it was. And I mean, that's
Right.
creative flow.
Right, right. It can be cooking, it can be strumming a guitar, it can be writing, it can be painting, it can be working in the garden, being in nature, it can be play, it
Mm,
can be, building blocks, and it can be playing like a child. I mean, it's so many. It is creativity. And creativity, as we often say in here, does not equate to art making, although that's kind of our jam here. But creativity is creative expression, is life force energy in an engaged state of cosmic play.
right. That freedom of being able to do that and being connected to that source, that, yeah, that creative source, that spark that we talk about a lot.
Yes, yes. And when we say connection and union, I mean, whether or not, whatever, no matter what you believe, like no matter what your beliefs are about the world, just bridging the body with the soul, or whatever is beyond the body, bridging the spirit with the senses, energy and matter. Like I just see it as a very, like, bringing together the sacred and the mundane. We ourselves as human bodies are this bridge between earth and spirit, if
Mm,
you will. And it's like our engaged play, our creative flow is life itself expressing. And I just see that as very, very divine.
it's like, me too. And I think that's why I become so on fire when I talk about things like this, because it is in that very state where things can shift and change for the entire world from the inside out. Like, imagine if how, I don't know, millions of us were in creative flow. I just it blows my
Right.
mind
I
and it blows my
know.
heart open.
Yeah, yeah, same here. I'm wondering if I could read a little passage from, actually not from the book per se, but I found a journal writing that I had done. I just rediscovered this last night, and I would love to read some of this, because we talk a lot in here about, why is this important? Why even care? Like, why
Right.
engage?
Yeah.
And I think this touches on it just a bit. I wrote in my journal that tapping creative flow puts you in a direct receiving of inspiration and wisdom that some attribute to the higher self, the wisdom of the heart, messages from ancestors and guides from beyond. It is a radical act to come home to your own body and create from your own heart on your own timeline and to allow it to be free from commodification. Creativity is a sacred act that is for your enjoyment without needing to turn it into what you create, or excuse me, without needing to turn what you create into a side hustle.
Mm.
Art for process is for you. It can be a decolonization practice, a deprogramming practice for reclaiming yourself, your own mind, heart, body, and your own sense of agency and interconnection to the web of life and nature. Life is not an endless grind. It is a mysterious and beautiful unfolding through cycles. Creation, enjoyment, release, and rest. To be in creative flow is to call all parts home to the present, into coherence and healing. It empowers us in imagining and stepping into a new future and creating a new world that works for all. Creative flow is union with self, with the emotions, the heart, the body, the present moment, and ultimately with the collective. For a balanced world, we need all voices and perspectives to be seen and to be heard. We need witnesses from all corners of life. Your story matters. Your perspective matters. Your magic is needed.
Mm. Wow. Yes. A million times yes. And that was just something you journaled. That's, I mean, and that does that not speak to what we are just talked about, how that's how you're connecting with that wisdom, that spark, that's and FYI, if you
Right.
haven't listened to the podcast we did on is creativity a form of channeling, that would tie really well into what we're talking about right now too. Like you're
Right.
hooking into that and that, you're journaling and this flows out.
Right. Right. I know sometimes I go back in my journal and I'm like, oh, wow,
Yeah.
yeah. Who wrote that? Where did that come from?
Absolutely.
But as you know, and as we've talked about in here before, like I was not always connected to my creative flow. I think neither of us were.
Mm.
And, that's why we are so passionate now about helping others to reconnect to their creative flow. Because I was certainly in a frozen state for many years for my early adult life, and I feel like reclaiming that flow is returning to that returning to the body, returning to wholeness, returning to the emotions, um, following, learning to follow your intuition, and returning to that warm, liquidy, flowy state, as opposed to this frozen, confined, controlling, fearful place of not really living fully. You know
Absolutely.
what I'm
And
saying?
not to say there's anything wrong with that. That's just because I've
No.
been there too. I mean, from early trauma
Yeah.
to where I am now, it's night and day. And that's again, that's why we are so passionate about this because it can make such a difference. And as you were speaking, like I was seeing this image of you know blood flow being blocked and how let's say extremities can go numb, right? But then whatever is blocking the blood flow is released and all this warm blood starts to go through the extremities and you feel tingly and warm and everything. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
And interesting that you were saying something similar as you were like I was seeing it in my uh, it's all just coming together
Mm.
right now.
Well, and a lot of the wisdom traditions talk about the energy flow of the body, the
Mm.
chi, the life force energy, and I think there is something to this that blocks are blocks. What can you hear that?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Oh, good. A truck just went by. Okay. That blocks are blocks, whether it's a block in the physical body that leads to dis-ease, or health issues or a creative block, a block or a soul block, if we feel like we're just not fully living. And I mean, I feel like, moving through these blocks, moving back into a flow state is the return to health and wholeness of the whole being, our body, our mind, our heart, our expression. I feel like it's all interrelated.
I completely agree. I completely agree. And I made a note here, this is the magic that everybody talks about that we're trying to get, and it's just right there. It's waiting for us in this state.
Yes. It can literally be with I mean, you were saying before this call, Steph, that you were
Yeah.
doodling and you were kind of losing track of time. And I mean, literally with a pen and a piece of paper even, or just being present with whatever it is we're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that really is the key. Presence and curiosity, like curiosity. So I'll just give that as an example. Thank you for reminding me. So I came down to the studio where we record, and there was a paper towel that had some markings on it, and immediately my curiosity was like, ooh, because I saw a figure in there, and I'm like, done. And I just start, fleshing that out. And the next thing you know, it's after the time we're supposed to meet. And I'm like, oh, but I was in that state fully, and it was amazing. And it's that
Mm.
curiosity that like,
Yeah.
what would happen if I just did this? And then, oh, there's her eye, and there's the other eye, and you
Mm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
that cosmic play.
Yes, I was just going to say, and you can see how the play comes into play here.
And I think I had that freedom of being allowed to do that because it was on a wrinkled up paper towel.
Mm.
There was nothing holy or sacred about it. I didn't have to keep it precious. It was just this paper towel.
Yeah, yeah. The impermanence of it,
Hmm.
the release of attachment to results. I mean, and this is where we can really come into more of a place of freedom when we're not hung up about how are people going to receive this? How is it going to measure up? Or needing it to be good, needing it to be archival, needing it to be whatever, like just being able to play with materials. There is a true freedom. And of course, that's why when we're working with groups and individuals, we usually use very basic art materials
Yep.
because it's not about that. I mean, yes, you can absolutely create art or any art form for public consumption and for the final resulting piece. But really, creative flow is about the process of the creation, the process, our process of being and allowing and expressing. And in that regard, like the finished piece is sort of a byproduct. I mean, it's great. It's great when we love it, but it's really not even about that. It's
Yeah.
really, as we say in here, flexing that creative muscle and beginning to trust our own flow. And I mean, and it is life itself.
I mean, that's not an exaggeration. I believe that's true, actually. That's my belief. It is life
Yeah.
itself. Yeah.
Yeah. And I too am holding that vision of just an entire planet of people in their creative flow and trusting that intuitive movement every single day, trusting their heart and expressing as they're led and being in that enjoyment, being in that bliss even
Yeah.
that often arises when we are truly engaged in that way. I mean, it's you could just imagine how life and society might be different.
Well, and I mean, and we could go on and on, but I mean, it does help cultivate that sense of agency, our own spark, what that feels like to be in it, and then how to move that throughout the world with other sparks. And I mean, yeah, that may be a different conversation, but I just
That might be.
love
Maybe
that.
that's our next one. Yes, yes, because we're all bringing our uniqueness and then we're all honoring each other's uniqueness too. We're
Right.
not saying mine is better than yours, or, it's like, what do we each bring to the table? What do we each bring? What piece do we each bring to the puzzle? Knowing that we are essential, our piece is essential, and yet so is everyone else's.
Right. Absolutely. Because when we're in that space, there's no comparing really, because it feels so good. You're just, yeah. Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
So that, folks, is why we're so stoked about all of this. We're sharing it.
We
Ah,
are, yes. And I do want to put a plug in here that for anyone that wants to dive into this more deeply, of course, my book, Creative Flow, Tap and Express Your Juicy Essence, it is packed with practices, with juicy ideas that you can integrate into your day-to-day life. It's got art practices too, writing prompts, and lots of visual inspiration in it.
and
What else?
correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't it win 3 awards, or am I wrong with that?
It did. I've got my physical copy here on the video, and I've got some book gold now.
Look at that.
It was a finalist in 3 categories. So yes, yes, it is now an award-winning book. If you don't
Yay.
have your copy, please check it out and let it be a resource for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of resources, do you want to like tap into the
Yes,
tools that we've got for today?
absolutely. Great segue, Steph.
Cool.
Do you have a writing practice for us?
I do. And again, it's very
Great.
simple, but it's when was the last time I lost track of time and what was I doing? And by sort of
Mm.
tracking that and writing about it, you have that muscle memory of what it felt like to be in that flow state. And maybe it gives you a clue as
Mm.
to, oh, I could keep doing that or something similar and cultivate
Yes.
that a little more.
Yes. I'm laughing inside because I'm thinking, oh, well, sometimes I lose track of time when I'm just scrolling my phone.
That's that is
And
true.
that's important to notice too,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
how fulfilling is that? Maybe sometimes it is, but yeah, maybe comparing that feeling to the last time you were doing something creative and lost track of time,
Yeah.
or something that you love. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Maybe that question minus scrolling your phone. Yes.
Oh gosh. No, it's all, I mean, these questions, it's really about bringing awareness.
Mhm.
And it's like, oh, yeah, what do I notice from that? And yeah, I love it. I love it.
Absolutely. And what about you?
Okay.
What's the exercise?
So the creative expression activity I wanted to share is actually from the book. And I can't remember if we've done it in here before or not, but I call it a brush dance meditation. So for this, and this does not have to be a brush with paint. I mean, of course, we usually choose paint, but this could also be like grabbing a large marker. But basically, you want to find a large sheet of scrap paper or something you can make marks on and something to mark with. I suggest a paintbrush and maybe some black acrylic, or excuse me, black tempera paint or acrylic, or a marker or a pen. But basically, to put on some flowy music, something that you love, take some deep breaths, come into your body, and then begin to allow the implement, the tool, the brush, the marker, whatever, to make the decisions, to let it go where it wants to go on the page. Let it be a brush dance or a marker dance. And just allow yourself to sort of get lost in that experience, not losing yourself, but losing the sense of control because it's not about the results. So see what the brush, see where it wants to go.
Mhm.
See what comes out of it. And it can be as slow as you want. It can be slow and methodical, or it could be faster and more scribbly, or maybe it changes, maybe it shifts. But this is really, it is a meditation and it is a dance, and it's very different from, again, those states of more having more control or desire for certain results.
Mm. Restriction. Yeah, totally.
Restriction, yeah. Yeah. So this is the unfettered brush expression.
I love it.
Yeah,
Thank
yes.
you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And thank you for this conversation.
Oh man, I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I feel like we could go on and on about it. I think we'll maybe break this up into some more episodes. But yeah, I love just even exploring this idea of creative flow and why it's so important,
Mm,
why we need it in our lives.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And of course, if you have your own thoughts and beliefs and experiences around creative flow, we would love to hear from you. There are
Yes.
a few ways you can get a hold of us, but basically, if you just go to creativenectarstudio.com, you will find ways to do that, or hit us up on our socials, Facebook, Instagram, while they're
Yes.
still there. No, I'm kidding.
Yes.
um, yeah. So we would love to hear from you. And we have a community. We have an online community, the Soul Nectar
Yes.
community, and we would love to see you there as well.
Yes. Yes. Please come play with us. All right.
Okay. Feels
Yeah,
good.
feels good. Feels good.
Well, thank you all again for tuning in, for hanging out with us for a little bit, and we look forward to next time.
Yes. Until next time, be well, let your creativity flow.